Hey y'all, welcome back to Cherry Hill Farm. Today I just wanted to show you a new piece of equipment that I picked up. This is our new Pendulum spreader. It's a Southern. I really wanted to find a Vicon, or well, since Kubota's bought out Vicon, they're Kubota now, but it's still pretty much a Vicon, because they're supposed to be the big name that's always been really good. But I picked this one up used off of a friend of mine for less than half the price of a new Kubota, and it ain't but about 2 years old. So I have used it a little bit this afternoon because I kind of wanted to figure out what the heck I was doing before I started trying to make a video about it. But it's doing a phenomenal job spreading this soggy wet 1717. I had my fertilizer place mix me up some ton bags, and it poured down rain for about during the day they brought it and about 5 days afterwards, and it's been in the shed. But if you're familiar with fertilizer, you know if there's humidity in the air, it'll pick up every bit of it can like a sponge. So it has done a pretty dang good job spreading this soggy stuff, and there's not a lot of spreaders that would have. This one actually is a pretty nice option. It's got a hydraulic shut-off on it. So all you got to do is set your rate right here. There's a chart up here that seems to be pretty dang accurate. You have to do some math on it, and then the hydraulic cylinder is spring loaded, so it's only got one hose to connect. And so far, I may jinx it, but as of right now, this thing's working like a top. The benefit of using a Pendulum spreader is they are super accurate. If you've ever used a regular broadcast spreader, you know that it slings more fertilizer to one side than it does the other, unless it has twin spinners. So there's really no way to get around that. You just have to kind of work with it. That's the reason they recommend that you spread one direction and turn around and spread 90 degrees, doing half and half rates. But with this one, it spreads incredibly even. And I just went and did a little bit of spreading on pumpkin land, and the way that I did my pumpkins is I planted them first into green cover, and then I had nice tire tracks. Basically had the field gridded out because I don't have GPS. My foam marker on my sprayer doesn't work anymore. It was homemade. It kind of gave up the ghost on me, and I'm too tight to buy another one right now. So this, you don't have any other option other than GPS or just gauging your tire tracks. So with my field gridded out, my pumpkins planted ahead of time, I can tell exactly how far I'm slinging fertilizer, and I can turn around and sling fertilizer back to that exact point and do a really good job of applying. I am putting down 500 pounds to the acre of 1717. With 500 pounds to the acre of 1717, that's going to give me about 85 units of nitrogen. That should make pretty good pumpkins. Hopefully it's not too much nitrogen, but the P&K over there is in pretty good shape, and that should be plenty sufficient P&K too. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about calibration, and you can use this method for calibrating a sprayer or a fertilizer spreader. So the chart on here on the front, which based on what I have found is extremely accurate, it tells you how many pounds you're putting out per minute. So you need to know how far your tractor's traveling in a minute. So I just set a stopwatch on my phone, and I used the fence out here because the boards are 8 feet long, and I went down 80 foot of fence because that's how long the front stretch is, and I timed how long it took, divided that into a minute, divided that into a minute and multiplied it, and figured out how far the tractor was traveling in a minute. This spreader spreads 40 foot wide at that RPM it tells me on that chart, so I could figure out the square footage. divide that into 45,000 square foot, and I know that's not exactly right, but it's pretty dang close, and I can figure out where to set my spreader for the pounds per acre. And if you want to do a more accurate test, the best way to do it with this, and you're going to use a little bit of fertilizer in order to do it, is put 100 pounds in your spreader. You got to have enough to make it like it's going to be, or close to like it's going to be when you're actually spreading. Go out to the field, start and go until you run out of fertilizer. Measure the width and the length at that setting, and that'll tell you how much you're putting out per square foot, and you can calculate acreage. You can do the same thing with your sprayer by measuring. I like to measure how much is coming out of 3 or 4 nozzles in 1 minute's time. That way you can average it, calculate up your number of nozzles, and you can figure out how many gallons you're going to spray and your boom width versus how far you've traveled. And I know that was fast and whatever, but I've talked about this before on some other videos, and I may get more in depth on it if y'all want me to at some point when I have more time. But right now, I'm going to put a couple thousand more pounds in this spreader and go get it out. Slide this back and forward a little bit. Here? Yeah. That's good? Yep. Wasn't that a whole lot easier than opening 40, 50-pound bags by hand? Alright y'all, I'm going to wrap this one up. I just wanted to come out here and show you my pumpkins. Spaghetti squash have been in the ground the longest. They're the first thing I planted, and the next day I started planting pumpkins after I had all the squash planted. Virtually every single spaghetti squash is up and out of the ground, and that seed's about 4 years old, so really impressed with that. Old Kratos is just starting to shed its hull off of its seed leaves. This is probably just poked up today, but in case you're wondering how the poly planter did no tilling, you can see this row of kratos right here. We're missing one, but I'm not going to dig because I feel certain it's fixing to pop up. Man, I couldn't be more pleased. Got one plant virtually every 20 inches. I mean, consistent germination too. I mean, I know we're not growing field corn where it's all got to pop up at the same time, but I'm sure that's helpful with pumpkins too. So evidently not only did it do a good job of singulating and getting them all in the ground, but it did a consistent job of getting them at the same depths. But anyway, if you missed, well, I don't know if I mentioned it or not in my last video, but this was planted, and then the very next day I burned it down with gramoxone and strategy. And I'm kind of wishing I had put a little dual magnum in there. So I got a little patch of Johnson grass out here that has bounced back from the gramoxone, but for the most part we're pretty clean. Probably going to come through if it ever rains. We're in pretty dire need of rain at this point. I'll let the weeds start to come back if they do come back a little bit, and I'll come through with some sandia and try to knock those in the head before the pumpkins get too big, while I can still get across here with my boom sprayer. I think there's a limit as to when you can spray sandia over pumpkins anyway, but definitely spray sandia. And if I have to, like there's some little patches, like there's some cowitch vine right here, and I've got some Johnson grass over there. I've got a hooded sprayer for the back of the tractor, and I may just come do some spot spraying with maybe some Roundup plus AIM or something like that. I don't know, AIM can be a little hard on cucurbits, but anyway, may go back with gramoxone again, just mix it a little heavier, but probably do some spot spraying with hooded sprayers before these things start to run, and try to touch up some of these places. But overall, the field is really clean. Some horse nettle that got away a little bit, and this cowitch vine right here, and some Johnson grass. Other than that, we're clean as a whistle. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm gonna get back to work.